mic is in place. Make sure we are in the camera view, and we are set to go live in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome back to Weather Center Live, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I'll openly admit it's a bummer that we're only doing live streams right now, but I need to get back into the rhythm of actually editing and pumping out content. It's going to happen soon. A lot of folks out there are stealing the channel's thunder and reporting on all the different scenarios we have going on out there, but welcome back. It is Tuesday, January 16th, 2024, and we're going to talk all things winter and weird, wild weather, wicked wild weather for us here in Florida, as well as the rest of the lower 48 outside of the extreme desert Southwest. The desert Southwest decided that they're not playing in these Arctic reindeer games either, just like the remainder of the Florida peninsula, at least for now, until that front can finally eat its way through the rest of the state. How's everybody doing tonight? We have Mick and Marley in the chat. Yes, one arrow tonight. Scrooge McDuck, welcome in. Naz never disappoints with his lives, even the surprise ones. Oh, I appreciate that. Out on mine and Marley's evening walk. She is like my puppy kitty. Lol, we go for walks all over, and she stays right with me. That's adorable. I love that. Ethan's Life, welcome in. Zenful, welcome in. Samastapasta, or Samastapasta, welcome in. Let's do it. How close are we? Hello there. So yeah, we're doing a bit of a different type of schedule this week. We're doing a live stream today because it seems like once we roll into tomorrow, we're really not going to have as much to talk about. So tomorrow we're probably going to take a break from the YouTube sphere and call it a day, if that makes sense. Today, though, we have some things to recap and look forward to, and I don't mean that positively, I just mean look out ahead of. I don't believe we had any tornado warnings today, but the irony was the Port St. Lucie, Stuart, Florida area definitely dodged a bullet today because shortly after a cell pushed off the coastline down there, they put out a special marine statement for a potential waterspout in a rotating thunderstorm. So, and actually, if you look at the very tail end of this satellite loop, you can see it right there. There you go, right there, that guy. And just to the north of our northernmost Bahama Islands, that was the one that was radar indicated off the coastline. We didn't have any impacts on shore, thankfully, although there were definitely a ton of different special weather statements, Swiss-related storms that had the, you know, they say the overarching potential to produce a funnel cloud or two. So very interesting setup, that's for sure. Very interesting pattern because we have essentially 2, if not 3 different environments, our own little mesoscale environment over the state of Florida. You know, the first half of it is frozen, the middle half is getting rain, very muggy, and then the southern half is basically in summer. We had temperatures all the way up to, I believe it was in the low 80s near Miami and Fort Lauderdale, which is incredible. We had 3 different air masses over our state just by itself. You know, the rest of the country is dealing with this Arctic blast, and then we have another barotropic system that's getting ready to wander its way into the Pacific Northwest coastline. You can see it right here, very deep occluded system. I wouldn't be surprised if this is nearly cut off from its jet support very soon, if not totally barotropic or completely non-baroclinic at this point in nature. And then down here, yeah, we've had, you know, it was like a rain-snow mix, I will say, for the extreme northwesternmost panhandle. I'm talking like a very tiny sliver. I don't even know if you guys are picking that up on the screen that I'm sharing on right now. But they did have some snow flurries that tried to make it in to the Pensacola area, and especially just to the north of that. But it was mainly just more sleet, freezing rain, and icing. It really didn't get to realize a lot of the actual snowfall that we saw through parts of Alabama and Mississippi. I believe Georgia reported a little bit of snow. I have the observations up right. Whoops, where did they go? Here they are. So yeah, very little touch of snow in Georgia. They definitely saw another good round of it over the last 24 hours in Tennessee, West Virginia, and the further north you go, you can see it right here. So overall, we topped out at about 7 inches of snow, and I think that's right around Knoxville, Tennessee, right up over that plateau area that's up on the eastern side of the state. Looks like it ran right along the North Carolina state line with a little bit bleeding into a few of the counties in its northwest quadrant. And already, you know, it goes without saying, like the rhythmic pattern of the YouTubes nowadays, we're already going crazy. about the next system. And I got to get up to speed on these storms, because whenever I hear storm, I think of either a localized thunderstorm, or I think of like a synoptic scale storm, or something that's producing a big, widespread, scattered storm situational kind of event. But folks are already talking about this next big old storm system that's going to come through. And now from heavy snow over 12 to 20 inches here, now it's back up here. Extreme major snowstorm expected. And it's like it's clockwork. It's clockwork at this point. You can start to forecast YouTube a little bit more than you can forecast the weather. Where is going to be the freeze? Which state? Edwin, I'm not too sure if you're trolling with that comment, but the freeze is pretty much like this. That's pretty much the freeze. We have sub-zero temps over the northern plains, over Montana, Wyoming. You can kind of see it during the overnight hours. You can see all those blue shades filling back in down at surface level. That's the surface of the earth cooling dramatically with all that cold Canadian Arctic air that's still slowly seeping down. It's like a lava flow out of a volcano, just slowly trudging its way down, and it's slowly marching its way through Florida. And it looks like, once again, the extreme southernmost tip is just going to be like, I'm good. You all can keep the cold. Mr. Castle, welcome in. Good to see you. Mike, all I'm going to say is New Orleans is not meant for this ice crap. Nope, I definitely concur with that. I can only imagine what's happening in the northern half of the Florida Peninsula, especially as it gets cold out. The drivers are probably freaking out and have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they don't know what they're doing half the time when there's nothing going on out there, so I can only imagine when you throw in a little bit of inclement weather. So this is what everyone is talking about, and once again, I kind of had to, squint. I had to squint at my computer screen because I'm seeing all sorts of different reports. Next major storm system, next big winter storm, and I'm looking and I'm like, I don't see a low anywhere. I'm looking at it. This is 72 hours out and I don't see a low. I see a Hatteras low eventually, just like what we just had right now, form up at the 78-hour mark this upcoming Friday, but that's off the coast. So I don't know where we're seeing. I don't see anything out there, truthfully. I mean, it looks like right there, just like we talked about during our yesterday's live stream, we get a nice little surge on the western side of our big old mid-Atlantic high pressure that's kind of gone stagnant over Bermuda, throwing a lot of good subtropical modified air back to the north, helping to warm us up. And if you guys remember what I had mentioned about the pattern ebbing and flowing, with all these big folks, making it sound like the pattern's going to go upside down, you can even see it here looking at our surface, but our 1,000 to 500 thickness. Here's the next trough, and then here's our ridge. There's the pattern, and if you look where we are right now, I bet you 10 to 1 you'll see this kind of a deal going on, because the pattern just kind of ebbs and flows. That's literally wavelength of the long wave patterns. That's all that's happening. We're just seeing the consistent ebbing and flowing we always do with the pattern during the winter time. So if anything, I would say this could be our next major storm system if we really want to categorize it as the next historic, intense, extreme, dangerous, life-threatening, whatever kind of jargon you want to throw on the table. It does look like as we get towards the very tail end of this month, towards the final weekend, I should say, that's when we'll have another major winter storm shooting almost due north out of the southern plains. It'll kind of go in the opposite direction. We're used to them forming up over the Oklahoma-Texas panhandle and going east before going northeast. This one's going to kind of form down in that same general area and then shoot due north into the northern plains, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes. And, it's way too far out. Does not seem like we're going to see a whole lot of advection down here. It looks like Florida's going to miss that event altogether. We could see some localized flooding. Way too far out to start deducing if this is going to be a severe weather event whatsoever. But, yeah, all in all, I see like a weak little shortwave right there. It looks like there's a weak shortwave system that's dropping a little bit of snowfall right there. Some kinking in the isotherms, the isobars that could be indicative of a small, weak, low-pressure system trying to form up. But then with that next plunge of Arctic air, and it is Arctic, I will agree with that much, whoever's saying the next Arctic blast, the next Arctic War of the Worlds invasion, War of the Poles, we'll say. That's definitely going to happen, but, gosh, this makes me very, very almost PTSD-esque about what the hurricane season is going to look like. Oh, snap. Tropical wave. Here it comes. This is going to be a Cat 5 when it makes it to the Gulf of Mexico. I'm scared. But anyways, that's kind of all we're really looking at. I haven't really had a chance to pull up too much just yet. I know I have a couple things here. Here's our snowfall with the European model. And you can see even with our total snow, and this is the total snow, guys, and I know I normally don't use this, but if you look, that next system's not really going to drop a whole lot. You know, it looks like we could get somewhere between 2 to 4 inches as it treks out of the Rockies into the northern central plains. And then as it approaches the Midwest, it's going to transition into much more of a lake effect event as you get into the western and the backside of it. So I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to see what happens, but I think the pattern's going to finally calm down a little bit. It's just going to be very cold, very frigid until we can mix it out. Which is going to take a little bit. Not so much for here in Florida. I wouldn't be surprised if we rebound within the next 2 to 3 days before this hits and then we get cold again. So I definitely urge my Florida viewers and anyone in the southeast or along the Gulf Coast where we get a little bit of that warm air modification thanks to not only El Nino but the Gulf of Mexico waters, make sure you have emergency, vitamin C, vitamin D, what else? Iron, zinc, multivitamin supplements, get plenty of rest, get some exercise in to make sure that your immune system is definitely bolstered or strengthened just a little bit, because this is how you get sick. This is definitely how you get sick, and I know I've been blasting and pumping the multivitamins and all sorts of different things I can find in my pantry. Not to the extreme, you know, the prescribed dosages, or the recommended dosages, I should say, but, you know, just making sure that I'm ready, because when I was growing up in Florida before leaving for the military, I used to get sick like clockwork at this time of year. It would get cold, hot. Cold, hot. Today it was hot. It felt like a summertime morning when I went out to the gym this morning. I felt ridiculous in my hoodie. I thought maybe there'd be a little bit of a chill with the windows down, but nope, I was almost busting a sweat. And then tomorrow morning we're going to wake up near freezing here in Central Florida. This is just a quick glance. You can see all those sub-zero temps engulfing at least 40% of the country, and then we are below freezing for the remaining 90%. At least these are the overnight lows. You can see, again, the desert Southwest and the Florida Peninsula are not playing the game. They're like, nope, we're ready for summertime, we're ready for the hurricane season, and yada, yada, yada. But then as you take this through time, there goes our next big old plunge. You can see it's more of like a cold pocket coming out of Canada that's going to drift over the Great Plains. Well, it is going to go over the Great Plains, but over the Great Lakes, and that's what's going to help to induce our lake effect scenario. And then from there, you know, there's a bit of a warm-up, but if you notice, guys, notice the trend here. You see how we kind of warm up? It's very weak. It's very difficult to notice here, but there is a bit of return flow that tries to come out of the Gulf of Mexico and try to modify this Arctic / very, very intense polar plunge out of the way. But then it gets battered by that next upcoming system. And then as you take it even further through time, here comes our next ridge out west, and then our next trough builds in. And so you can see that our pattern's just going to keep going back and forth. It's like a teeter-totter, like so. So if there's anybody out there trying to convince you that there's some kind of chaos on the horizon or Independence Day or something like that in terms of our weather pattern, it's just the natural ebbing and flowing. I can hit the wave. I can still do that from back when I used to dance. That's kind of what's happening with our long wave pattern. So here's the snow for down over the south. We saw lots and lots of freezing rain and icing buildup, kind of like Mike has alluded to in the chat as well. We've seen lots of extreme. That's one time I will say extreme. We have a lot of icing and a lot of traffic congestion, a lot of traffic hazards, travel hazards out there across the southeast United States, especially into the Florida Panhandle where they just had that big old cold plunge come through, and it's slowly working its way down through our area now. I believe if we go over to WPC, you'll see that I think they have on their latest analysis, the front is drawn right through the center of the peninsula. Yeah, you can see. We'll go to the most current surface analysis. There you have it. This is as of 21Z. So here very soon they should be, or actually I should imagine any moment now they'll have their 0Z analysis out. And we'll probably see this take just a bit more of a southward plunge before it finally gets hung up where it always does, just to the south of the Keys, before trying to pass over the Bahamas, Cuba, and then it'll wrap itself back up with the next storm system that's coming through. And this is very interesting. WPC actually has a weak low vortice, like a stable wave that forms up on the leading edge of that next Arctic plunge. Very interesting. We'll have to see how that shakes out. Here's the GFS. This is our 18Z. And the 18Z does look like it has a very weak system that tries to transition through the pattern through the southern plains. Nothing devastating or catastrophic. Doesn't look like we get any major cyclogenesis until you're off the mid-Atlantic coast. That Hatteras low regime sets up as you introduce all that upper-level jet energy. I would imagine if you think about this three-dimensionally, Here's our jet max working its way through the pattern, and then we have a short wave right on the leading edge of it. Let me redraw that real quick. There's our jet max working its way through the pattern with a short wave right on the leading edge that's going to try to induce a little bit of cyclogenesis, and once it makes it over top the mid-Atlantic, you can see all that wraparound snowfall along the leading edge of that jet streak. There goes our Hatteras low forming up like clockwork. Don't let anyone try to tell you that's rare, because that is definitely not rare. Mr. Shane Castle in chat can definitely testify to that. That is not rare. It is not rare to see lows form here. It is not rare to see lows form here. Not rare to see them wander onto the west coast, and definitely not rare to see them form up somewhere in this general area. Sometimes they're a little bit further south than the actual Cape Hatteras latitude area. Might be just off the Carolina coast, off of the Georgia coastline, like we saw with Tropical Storm Ophelia. Dare I bring it up? I still think that was more of a jet-supported, maybe subtropical system, but I digress. I'm going to bury the hatchet on that one. So we'll see. That's going to provide us with some pretty decent snowfall. Again, nothing too intense, and with its current trajectory, you're not going to have a lot of time spent under those nor'easter conditions in the northeast. It'll mainly just be that break-off lake effect you can see funneling off the Great Lakes down to the south, right underneath that major Arctic cold pocket. It's not going to be a major plunge. It's more so just going to be some breakaway cold air from up north, it looks like, because if you see, it actually warms. Technically, if you look at the thickness, we go from 504 to the 510. There's your Arctic air. Then you have your 516, and the 522 is trying to ridge over top of it as well. So it's just a cold dome. It's not really going to be an actual just full-on invasion like some people will say. It's more, dare I say it, kind of like a gigantic Arctic spaceship that's going to park itself over the Great Lakes and then slowly get bullied off the coast as our ridge builds in. You can see all these warmer thicknesses surging up over the western half of the U.S. There's our trademark signature right up against the lee of the Rockies, those pressure gradient lines or those isobars really stacking up against itself because we have such shallow, cold air. And that's honestly a really good rule of thumb whenever you want to forecast for freezing rain in the south or on the leading edge of your, the lee of the mountains on either side of the Rockies or the Appalachians, either side of the country. That's exactly why we had so much bad icing down here, is because when you think about it, we have our subtropical El Nino jet still screaming through the pattern. You can see it clearly, plain as day. That's what helped to really intensify the thunderstorm activity and give them some good rotational shear over Florida. You can see it, literally every single thing that blows up on the leading edge of that front just immediately starts tumbling. It's like they end up in a flat spin like the space shuttle back in the day, or when, you're coming in, you get knocked out of course and you just start spinning. It's basically exactly what's happening. You have those updrafts trying to I shouldn't say peacefully, but they're trying to grow and condense into actual full-fledged cumulonimbus, and as soon as they interact with that subtropical jet, immediately, boom, and they're just sent into a spin. And you could very well see it on this infrared shot, a brilliant example. And so that's what's also helping to keep our 570 or 564 thickness lines real close to the south. So as soon as we have an open gulf, as we like to call it, and return flow, we're going to get some modification, particularly along the coast, kind of like this. And that's exactly why, truthfully, I don't remember where I was going with this. I'm not going to lie. I'm having a major brain fart right now. Whoops. Oh, yeah, and that's exactly why we tend to have a nice warm layer form up for these freezing rain, ice, sleet events down across the southeast, and especially on the lee side of the mountains, where you get a little bit of warming brought on by if you have some cross barrier flow, or you have some not lee of the mountain, but some cold air damming, some CAD on the lee side of the mountains. You have that warm layer that has no other choice but to go over top that shallow pool of cooler air, and you give yourself a nice warm layer on your skew-T soundings. Thank God, Zenful, knock on wood, East Australia has been getting flooding due to moderate El Nino. If it was strong to super, then we would have really bad flooding there and very busy tropical cyclone season. There's still some folks talking about the tropics out there. There is one tropical cyclone on the planet right now. Tropical storm, I'm so used to saying tropical storm. Tropical cyclone Bilal. Very ugly looking system. Nice, technically cyclonic, but upside down. Anticyclonic, but cyclonic in the southern hemisphere rotation to it. Kind of holding on. It looks like it might have some dry air involved in it. Not too impressive right now. I wonder how strong is it. Sitting at 55 knots, solid. That would be just shy of hurricane strength with 984 millibars in its center of circulation. Shucks, guys. I'd be lying to you if I said I did miss looking at these bad boys, looking at the ensembles and talking probabilities and whatnot. You know, I'm looking forward to actually being able to dissect all that stuff with you guys next hurricane season, especially when we may have a lot more to look at. Oh, no, never mind. We have Angric out there as well. I lied to you guys. Whoops, there you go. So we actually have 2 invest areas and 2 named cyclones out there still. Active tropics. Tropics are waking up. I'm just kidding. No, they've been awake just in another quadrant of the globe. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all she wrote. If you look at our National Weather Service blend of models for that next snow event, the blend of models is in very good agreement that a lot of that snow is really going to lose its impact as you move out of Montana and Wyoming, and we're going to see maybe a couple inches at best accumulate with that next major winter storm system before it finally turns into a little something more over the Northeast and all that good old lake effect on the east side of all of our Great Lakes up there. But even then, the NWS blend of models doesn't really have too much in the way of sporty accumulation. Of course, all it takes is a couple good inches to close things down and cause chaos on major roadways. But, you know, I mean, we have a little bit longer to spend, dare I say it, we have a little bit more time to spend hyping up the snow before it kind of relaxes a little bit, and then we're just left out to dry, and all these YouTube channels are going to get back to either copying each other or coming up with the most random things to talk about. Even the Shref, if you look at the 24-hour snowfall with this, once you get out of the higher terrain features of the northern central Rockies, the Great Basin, Snake River Valley, Intermountain West, Four Corners, you don't really get a whole lot of this. The Shref, the short-range ensembles, are thinking 2 inches max in your heaviest snow band until you hit the Great Lakes. The Northeast, as that system deepens down, these colors look extravagant, but maybe 4 or 5 inches at most, at least according to our current iteration. There's still 87 hours out, so we'll see some fluctuating like always. Got to throw that disclaimer out there. But, you know, I mean, after that, we got to take a bit of a break. We got to hang out and just start talking about cold air. This cold just got colder. You thought it was cold? Well, it's getting colder. This cold air just got worse. Or the best one, this cold air is being weird. I can't. This is probably why I get people yelling at me when we're doing these live streams. I joke around far too much with some of the shenanigans I see out there on the weather sphere. But, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all she wrote, guys. Unless anyone has any questions in our very intimate group chat tonight, that's all I really got. We're just watching for that next snow band to move through, and it doesn't look like until we get way into the back end of January, do we finally see some systems surging out of the Gulf of Mexico, and even that might be a stretch. We'll have to watch and see what happens. And then right around my birthday, there's really not much on the GFS's horizon. Let me see if the 12Z had anything to share with us. Let's see. I got to click the AOI. Let's go 12Z. See if 12Z had anything to share with us. Nope, on my 30th birthday, there's really not a whole lot to talk about. And it looks like it might be either raining, if not just very warm and humid down here in Florida, which is not pleasant. You know, I would at least like to get a little bit of cold air into Florida to make the birthday time feel a little bit more pleasant. Ow. Close the door real quick. But yeah, I mean, that's just about it. We can't have too much humor. Oh yeah, Mick and Marley, we were joking around on my Instagram earlier today. We have too many insiders at this point already. Let's see. Let me go back and take a look real quick at some of the comments we went back and forth with. Yeah, some of our primary insiders at this point are just got worse, just got weird, or is acting weird. My favorite, Tropical Storm Vince, is still somewhere floating around on the globe, you know, just waiting to make its appearance in the Atlantic AOR. And then historic. Historic has been the big thing with the wintertime. You know, I'm ready to start seeing historic hurricane on its way for the tropical Atlantic, or historic La Nina, historic rainfall, historic surge, you know? So, J-Ski, that is a very good question. How will El Nino affect the spring weather in South Florida? So, to tell you the truth, it's really going to depend on how much longer El Nino will hang out. To tell you the truth, I'm not extremely well-versed in when our actual spring... When does spring start? So, March 19th. So, we could see a little bit of a continuation of what our El Nino winter time has done for us with, you know, the potential of severe weather, these random sporadic tornadoes, which, by the way, on my to-do list, I definitely want to research why it is that Port St. Lucie, Stewart, and the southeastern coastline of Florida has a gigantic bullseye on its forehead, because I swear we get tornadoes or funnel clouds out of that area like clockwork. It goes without saying, synoptic feature, trigger or not, you just tornado. You can get a random thunderstorm tornado, just like yesterday was just a garden variety thunderstorm that wandered its way through their tornado. I really want to research that in the background and come up with a bit of theories or just get some better education on it. Because I definitely think before this winter is over, I'm just going to go straight in there. I don't care if SIG torn parameters are highlighting the Panhandle or Western Florida. Nope. Next time we have a big synoptic scale feature coming through and we're highlighted for a level 1, if not more than that, by SPC, I'm going straight down to the southeast, because I know for certain we're getting a tornado. It's happened like clockwork at this point, on a rhythm at this point. I've had one a week almost. We had one yesterday. We had one last week. We had one a few days before that. So they've been getting a lot of tornadic activity down there. As a matter of fact, let's see if they have a report from down in that area. Let's see. This is our tornado watch summary. That's not going to help us. Where are these storm reports? Oh, there we go, right here. Dang, look at that. So we had 3 tornadoes. Wow. Multiple videos received via social media of a tornado crossing I-95. Emergency manager reports tree and fence damage in the area near Southwest Woodbine Way. Time estimated corrects previous thunderstorm and wind damage report from Palm City. Public report of a tree down on Southwest Woodbine Way. So I don't know if these are different tornadoes or if these are all just reports of the same tornado. That's difficult to confirm or not. But it's definitely, we had one major touchdown that's all over the internet. That's been trending everywhere. And one random wind report. Where was the wind report? In that same general area, right on top of each other? And that's exactly what I mean. Look at that. Right next to one another. Very wild. Very wild. Let's see. 1 tornado, not 3. I heard folks mentioning they saw multiple tornadoes, or at least not multiple funnel clouds, so I don't know. These times are not vastly different. This one is different out of Port St. Lucie. This one is definitely different. 6 miles south-southwest of Port St. Lucie, 5 miles west-southwest of Palm City. This could be the same tornado. The Latin long matches up, so we'll definitely have to see. But I know I heard a lot of folks mentioning online that there were multiple tornadoes that they visually saw out of that area. So to be determined. We'll see. It was brief like Broward County last week. We got to stop with you're very casual talking about these tornadoes. Only 24 tornadoes. We've seen worse. We'll rebuild. It was on the ground briefly. It only went over a major interstate. No big deal. And I'm not coming for you at all. It's just sometimes we're a little casual with the comments we drop in the chat regarding some of these tornado events. But yeah, there you have it. We had that's a dead spot, or not a dead spot, excuse me. That's a hot spot. It's like a pandemic zone for our tornadic activity. But tropical cyclones, if I'm not mistaken, to answer the previous question, this is going to be, I'm going to say, I'm not too sure. This looks like an Indonesian island chain here. I'm not too sure. Let's go and let's see where we can zoom out. I'm not too well versed in Latin long. Do we have anything on here that can help allude to where it is? Nope, does not. Bearing and distance, that's not going to help us at all. We'll have to take a look and see exactly. We didn't have 4 warnings. It's the same tornado, which was the one that was observed. Well, yeah, I know. I'm just saying. I get it. I've been seeing mixed reports all over the place. I just noticed that there are multiple reports in here, so who's to say? Maybe that was the amount of confirmed folks who called it in, on top of the numerous videos that are all over the place now surrounding that tornado event. But regardless, it goes out saying, my statement stands, that area is a hot spot. That area definitely is a hot spot, regardless of if it was quick or more than 5 minutes, etc. It's definitely worth watching for the future. That's for certain. You know what? I haven't looked at our, just for fun and shoots and giggles. Just for shoots and giggles, I figure since we are done talking major baroclinic systems, take a look at that. El Nino is collapsing. It is definitely trending down. Still in a moderate El Nino, but, you know, it's worth noting that we're getting closer to that +1 as opposed to being well above the +1.5. And this is our 3-4, where a lot of our major ocean and atmospheric impacts tend to come out of. Let's see what the 3 looks like. 3 is trending down. 4 is taking a sudden plunge like Montu at Busch Gardens. And 1 and 2 is holding steady at like we'll say a warm neutral. Or a neutral warm. That's not really a whole El Nino right there. That's more of like a very, very, very modest, relaxed, casual, having a drink on the beach El Nino. That is definitely more of like a elevated neutral, if you ask me. We're not really going to... If all of our charts echoed this right now in all of our Enzo regions, we really wouldn't have very much wind shear. Our subtropical jet would not be up there. You can see, too, our Pacific is very slowly starting to weaken. It is definitely starting to cool down, so very interesting to see that. It looks like some of the Atlantic has finally cooled off just a little bit. We're still very hot across the board, though, that's for sure. MDR is still primed and ready to rock and roll. The Caribbean is still hot. Just off of the western coastline of Central America, southern Mexico, it's still very hot. So we still have some pretty hot waters out there. And you can see that the overall anomaly in the North Atlantic is still very high, very, very, very high, especially where those tropical systems tend to march their way through as they come off of Africa later on down the road. So very interesting watching what's going to happen and monitoring the trends. And this definitely has my interest peaked to see that our 3-4 index is definitely in a steady decline. You can see from the start of the month and even just before that, we've been very, very holding steady, and then we're finally starting to trend down, and I do anticipate it's going to continue doing that as we go through time. So now the question is, are we going to keep seeing market declines and it try to resurge, or is it going to be more of a gradual crash and burn until we're finally into spring and the inevitable summer season? I think I have let's see, is this... Nope, never mind, that's not going to work. I wanted to pull up another SOI index from out across the planet where they monitor the El Nino. But yeah, guys, I mean, unless there's anything specific you guys want to talk about, we really don't have a lot on the docket tonight. Going to be doing some heavy research as to why we still have such good tornado potential along the southeast coastline of the U.S. Not the U.S., excuse me, of Florida. Wow. We're also going to do a bit of deep diving in what's to come next. We'll continue to make sure that you guys are updated on our El Nino. I don't believe we're going to have any new model day. I can't believe that we're already halfway through the month. Already well past the halfway mark of the month. Let's see what our CFS is saying for the good old Tropics. Just for shoots and giggles. We're probably going to start seeing the concurrent viewers go down. But let's see. CFS as of January 16th is thinking that August is going to be very, very ridiculous. September is going to be very, very ridiculous. October could be very busy. It looks like a very busy Western Caribbean AOI during the back end of the tropics. This here has me a little concerned, though. This and this. And I know that it's Climo, guys. I know it's Climo. And I know that we don't want to forecast off of Climo data. But it looks like the CFS, anyways, is thinking some fish storms, but also some that are going to bust the Lesser Antilles and give Florida a black eye a la Hurricane Ian, Hurricane Idalia. So that's going to be very, very scary if that's another eye storm that kind of tries to take something of a reminiscent path to this. And then this here definitely looks very indicative of a neutral pattern, not necessarily a La Nina. We would see a little bit more of these values going off to the west, as opposed to it looks like still seeing some possible fish storm activity for Bermuda. And then it does look like the southeast United States is under the gun for seeing some possible impacts, whether it be the Carolinas, Virginia, the eastern coast, or the Central Florida Peninsula. So all in all, we definitely have to watch because our Climo models are screaming in our faces that we need to be prepared. We need to start watching the tropics. They're going to come alive faster than we can probably anticipate this year, but I know if I were to put something out like that, I'm going to get screamed at, and people are going to come for me with pitchforks and torches and scream, "You're the biggest hype, fearmonger, scare tactic user of all." And it's like I'm going to look at and hold up on a green screen all the different YouTube channels and social media pages that have been going crazy all winter, but they're only going to come for this channel because they ain't got nothing better to do. So yeah, very interesting to see. I wonder if the CFS is thinking that we'll be in a neutral pattern still across the Pacific, and that's why it's showing some possible... No, actually, the CFS is thinking strong La Nina. Wow, look at that. Yeah, very strong La Nina creeping in. CFS is thinking we're going to see El Nino collapse by March, if not April, so we'll have to watch that for sure. And then there you go. We are already into the -2+ anomalies, cold anomalies out there across all of our Enzo regions. And then there you have it, right at the start of the hurricane season and thereafter. Looking at some very hot waters in the Atlantic as well. That's not good. Look at that. Caribbean is going to be really warm, 2 to 2.5 degrees hotter. Same with the Gulf. These are two source regions that we didn't really get a whole lot out of last hurricane season that we're really going to have to watch for. These storms are going to explode if they pop out of there, especially a La Nina. Definitely not a good sign. Strong La Nina is not as bad for us. I beg to differ. I mean, unless you're talking about trajectory and steering current, then yeah, absolutely. But I'm not just talking about Florida in this case. I'm talking to everybody who dodged a huge bullet or two, if not several, last hurricane season, particularly our Caribbean. You know, I think, honestly, it wasn't even the United States. I mean, Florida, of course, was the brunt of a lot of Hurricane Lee, Hurricane Nigel, Hurricane Franklin hype, like, shoot, on every page. And I will name drop them, but on Mike's weather page, David Schlotthauer, Pat's Path Predictor, on Ryan Hall even, there were a lot of folks who, for some reason, were convinced that Hurricane Lee was just going to do this and go straight into Florida. Same thing with Hurricane Franklin. Everyone was like, oh, it's going to come out of the Dominican and then just shoot west. Watch out. I don't know where people were getting these from. I don't know if it was that TikTok chick who said Cat 6 for Florida. Definitely did not verify. It was a false alarm. It would have been SWAT criteria if that were the case. But these are my areas I'm very, very more so concerned about. Because not only did we see a lot of hype during a lot of the hurricane season, especially towards October and November, where I feel like a lot of us weather folk were just fishing for storms at this point. We were panicking because our YouTube channels were going to tank after tropical season was over with, mine own included, although I wasn't trying to, again, tropical storm Vince with every little shower activity that we had out there. There's a thunderstorm over the Cayman Islands. That's tropical storm Vince forming up. He's going to be here in 12 hours. I'm worried for our folks out there. The misinformation and the false information out there could be deadly for a lot of our island natures, particularly the Lesser Antilles, who, for all intents and purposes, dodged a lot of bullets. I know they definitely got some flooding, but all things considered, if I were a member of the island nations out there, from the Windward to the Leeward Islands and further off to the west, getting into the British U.S. Virgin Islands, and even Puerto Rico, I'd rather take some pretty hefty rain events as opposed to a hurricane, or let alone a major hurricane kicking through that area, you know? And most of the time for both Philippe and Tammy, we had this going on. So, you know, all things considered, 90% of that island chain was on the weak side of that system. So they got a lot of rain, don't get me wrong. You know, a lot of mudslides, a lot of potential dangers and hazards out of those storms, but it was not the worst case scenario. And a lot of folks definitely made it seem like it was. And I'm just concerned for when the real one does come through, because I know that there's a lot of folks out there who are very bold and courageous during significant weather events, and they'll go out and have fun and stuff like this. And they don't want to be doing that in a Category 1, Category 2, if not stronger than that hurricane. So I'm definitely, my game plan, and I know I've echoed it to a lot of you guys before, my game plan for the tropical season is going to be assessing this general area right here. Because of the fact that we're going to have cold waters out here in the eastern Pacific, it seems like research and climatology suggests we will have some really good long-track hurricanes, but most of our big ones tend to fire off in this general area, whether they're already inside the Caribbean, where there will be favorable conditions, or they're just outside, where we will likely have a very strong steering high pushing them right into the Caribbean. So when that time comes, we're not going to have very much time to act. We're going to need to really be on top of our game forecasting for the hurricane seasons. So just like with the last season, we're going to be trying to blast out forecast updates up to a week, 2 weeks in advance, even if it does get us in hot water and starts telling people, you know, oh, you're hyping. Why are you forecasting 10 to 12 days out? because if something does blow up under a La Nina, we are not going to have time to get ahead of it. They're not going to be the disorganized systems, sheared apart, the dry air that we saw in 2023. We're going to have direct impacts to a lot of folks in there, and they're going to rapidly intensify with how hot the waters are and the little to no wind shear that's going to stop them from really, as everyone loves to say, rapidly intensifying. So that's going to be my main strategy, watching this and putting out as many preliminary forecasts for our Lesser Antilles and Greater Antilles, even Central America as possible. Because I know a lot of folks are going to be watching the U.S. The U.S. is going to have a lot of mainline defenses as we go into the hurricane season, especially with the aggressive preliminary forecasts some of the main weather pages are already putting out. It's going to be our Caribbean folks, so we're going to need to watch their butts tenfold, especially as we get into August, September, and even October. I'm really not liking how, look at this. That is incredible. These are 3 degrees warmer, and who's to say that's not going to just continue to translate across the Atlantic throughout the hurricane season. So I want to make sure we have as much of a protective informational barrier for our Caribbean nations as possible. And the same thing with the Bahamas, too. I'm not forgetting about the Bahamas. Our folks in the Bahamas and Bermuda are still very important as well. I just know that with a La Nina as opposed to an El Nino, this area is going to be ripe for some action, and those folks are going to have major systems bearing down on them and like 8 to 12 hours notice. Will it snow or ice in Tyler, Texas? Well, honestly, the snow event is pretty much over. We really shouldn't see very much out of that area for a little while, if not at all, for quite a consistent period of time. We had some icing that went on, maybe some light snow accumulation I do believe I saw out there earlier today on the social medias. But for the next 3 to 5 days, it looks like a lot of our systems are going to stay up to the north, and our snow threat is going to be confined to the central northern plains, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes, transitioning all the way through to the northeast quadrant or the northeast extent of the United States. So anybody down from here and south where you see our blue thickness lines going into those freezing and Arctic air or Arctic temperatures, we're not going to see very much. But, yeah, that's all she wrote. That was my little spiel on the hurricane season. And I did read, somebody mentioned, where was it? Let's see. Somebody had wrote, can you make an educational video on what El Nino is and compare it to La Nina? Will, that is an excellent suggestion. I would love to do that. Would you like strictly a comparison of what El Nino to La Nina is? Because that'd be a lot of hot air spewed out for all of what would take 60 seconds, more or less, to explain. And I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form, negatively. It's just, if we're talking El Nino versus La Nina, there's a very simple explanation for it. I'd love to elaborate on a greater level if we wanted to delve deep into a more specific topic surrounding El Nino and La Nina, like for the tropical hurricane season or, things along those lines. I agree. The solution is to simply remove I from the alphabet. Shoot, honestly, at this point, I'm willing to say that it is a curse on Florida if we do have Isaac coming towards us next hurricane season. I'm going to just throw up my hands and be like, yep, it's coming. Forecast it. Let's put the warning out 7 days in advance because it's coming this way. One Nation, welcome in. Hurricane Lee was the biggest hype event of the season and maybe ever with hurricanes on YouTube. I definitely agree, and I almost got sucked into that hype train because I was still getting used to working on the YouTubes here. And I know I got a lot of flack and shade thrown at me because I pulled this will impact many and, all this and this and that, because I saw other big name channels mentioning 60-foot waves, impact millions, and, all that fun jazz. And it was from that point forward I put on my blockers and I was like, nope, I'm just going to forecast what David Nazario is forecasting, and that's it. Sam Astapasta, my fiance, just called you Nazario the Wise. I appreciate that. I'm trying to get wiser. I'm trying to wise up and keep up with Mother Nature, that's for sure, with the help of some wonderful mentors and a lot of continuing education, both from Mississippi State and just rereading a lot of my old career development guides from the United States Air Force. And I can't wait to start taking the specialty courses with the Navy as well. I'm definitely going to be requesting as many of those to go TDY on as possible. Tyler, it did dust a little in Port Arthur, which is pretty far south. My friend sent me a photo. That's pretty dope. If no Isaac storm hits Florida, then we have to do something goofy. Honestly, goofy is me going to be cracking open a beer and just sitting out thinking we finally have broken the curse. We are done with the ice storms. I do like that, though, an ice bucket. Definitely an ice for the ice bucket challenge. Maybe do an educational series for El Nino and one for La Nina, and then one that explains the differences between the two and what that means for us in other places in the world. That's not a bad idea. Maybe some YouTube shorts or some talk informational things I can put out there. YouTube, I'd like to do something a bit more expansive of an educational series. Oh, yeah, this is still live, Sharon. Welcome in. I don't know why I would say it's not live. We're still here. Mr. Florida, welcome in. Brian, you were doing great, brother. I do appreciate it, sir. Thank you for joining us tonight. But yeah, guys, we're going to get ready to wrap up the live stream. I know we're about 15 minutes early in comparison to that hour mark, but we are pretty much all said and done. I'm not going to sit here and talk snow for an extra 15 minutes. Did you see the 3 inches? Did you see it? That is intense, guys. That's record-breaking right there. We need to write this in the history books and teach our children about this 20 years from now. We survived the historic snowstorms of 2024. Amanda, I hadn't seen you. Well, welcome in. We need a no I named storm party. I would definitely agree with that. I fell into the hype train myself during Hurricane Lee. I don't think my videos were too hype, but my thumbnails were a little extra. Oh, we've all been there, One Nation. We've definitely all been there. We will likely see a lot more of a pandemic as we get into the new tropical season. In fact, I would not be surprised, and mark my words, y'all owe me money if this comes true. Just kidding, no. But, mark my words, we're going to start seeing, as soon as we get into March, April, and especially May, everyone's going to start, especially once La Nina starts to trend in, everybody out there is going to start doing the, this just got worse. The hurricane season just got a lot worse. This hurricane season is going to be weird. This hurricane season is going to be historic. And, you know, bet you 10-1 before the season even kicks off, we're going to transition from the lack of major storm systems across the lower 48 and start talking about how bad and how much worse and how much crazier the hurricane season's going to get. And yeah, they're going to try to get the clicks. You know, sometimes I'm in a very heated internal debate as to whether or not I should just try to get the clicks. Just try to grow the channel, and when the channel is grown, then go back to providing a lot of the accurate information. Or should I keep the slow simmer of just very slowly trying to build followers by providing accurate, realistic, and comforting information? Because yes, will I tell you when dangerous weather is knocking on your door? 10%, 100%. 10% of the time, though, I'm going to try to reprieve that with very good weatherside, bedside manner. That's for sure. Because not everybody, and that's why I don't understand why some of these videos get the clicks. You know, there's a lot of folks out there who get scared of lightning and thunder. I don't understand how people are clicking in and getting excited to hear historic 75,000 feet of snow. Mount Everest is going to form in your backyard. You know, I don't understand why people are excited to click on that. That's why sometimes I think they're looking at, like, the days of our lives, a la the Weather Channel. Not in this case with the, you know, with some of these systems, but I digress again. And yeah, I agree. I definitely want to keep it real. I was joking around, though, the other day when I saw all the clickbait that was getting recommended on my YouTube. I was looking at some of my relatives at church, and I was like, you know what? I'm about to start clickbaiting like crazy. I'm going to start putting 50 tornadoes forecast in one day, and then as soon as someone clicks on the video, ooh, what does he have to say? So now that I have you here, let me tell you why that's not going to happen. Or something along those lines, just to be really silly about it, which I still need to make my parody video. And honestly, I have lots more ammunition to use with the winter season than I ever did in the tropical season. At this point, shoot, I have more than enough ammunition to do a whole roast. And you know, for my few viewers that are in here right now, drop a vote in the chat. I've been really, really heavily playing with the idea of doing a members-only roast on here. And I'll even roast myself because I know there's a lot of stuff I still need to learn, and I know there's a lot of stuff that I have learned through trial and error on the YouTube sphere and other social media platforms. But I'm thinking of doing like a, you know, very low-end, cheap, $2-3, you know, membership, and you can take part in the weather roasts and the uncensored, you know, weather discussions and whatnot that I host on my Instagram sometimes. Somebody, I forget who it was, maybe somebody in the chat or someone on Instagram floated that idea to me. I think it was Matt F150. I haven't seen him in the chat. I do see him active on Instagram every now and again, but I haven't seen him in here. But I'm thinking like a low-end membership just to help fluff the revenue for the channel a little bit, and then do like a no-kidding, uncensored, just full-fledged, we're name-dropping, we're going hardcore, we're roasting the living daylights out of people who deserve it. Because, I mean, let me tell you, I could go on all day with all the people who I see just not forecasting this right, not doing this right, not explaining this correctly. All these weird words I see some people thinking of, to make it sound very fancy. Like I remember one of them was, we have very good baroclinic forcing that's helping to increase the intensity of the vertical velocities of this storm. And I'm like, baroclinic forcing? So you're telling me you have a very aggressive forced temperature gradient over your updraft that's shooting up into the upper levels and expediting how fast your updraft core forms? That's intense. I need to read about this. And of course, I Googled it and nothing was there. I just saw baroclinicity, baroclinic gradient, etc., temperature gradient and all that stuff. There was another one. I'm trying to remember. It was something with vorticity. It was like something with shortwave vorticity, but they didn't even say shortwave or anything like that. It was something with like very good vorticity, some kind of weird description. I forget what it was, but it was basically describing what's happening inside of a hurricane. We have all this vorticity dispersion or vorticity occurring within the vortices inside the vorticity of the eye. And it's like, what are you saying, man? We just have little spins going on inside a bigger spin. That's it. What are you trying to sound fancy for? No one's going to care what you're saying right now. Shoot, I've learned that the hard way. Back in Air Force weather, there were plenty of times where I had folks who didn't know weather have to tell me to calm down with the jargon because, first of all, nobody cares. Second of all, nobody can understand you. I hope I never hear heat dome ever again. Oh yeah, that's definitely gonna stick. Heat dome. My favorite thing, if Mr. Castle is still in the chat, my favorite thing to say was the bubble of cold air, with the hand gesture describing it coming out of Canada. That was my favorite. Whenever I would sit through the briefings or the continuation training, we have a bubble of cold air coming in. That still makes sense though. A nice little bubble, a bubble of cold air. You can pop it and it's going to modify instantly. I'm just kidding. That's not how it works. But yeah, let me know in the chat what you guys think. I would definitely welcome any and all people. I would make it very, very, minimal in terms of, membership. I know that YouTube has been forcing in my face, start memberships, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm thinking, well, what could I really do for the sake of a paid membership? I know a lot of folks still do their pay for the membership and you'll get a customized forecast for your local area from the best in the industry. And it's like, well, first of all, I know you're dang well not the best because I've never heard of you before. And second of all, you can just go on your weather app or just look at a video on YouTube for free. Who's going to pay for a membership to have you talk about how it's bad enough you're hyping the weather for the country. Why are you going to let me hype the weather for your neighborhood? At that rate, you're going to get $5, however the memberships work. For $5 a month, I'll forecast tornadoes every day of your life in your neighborhood. Thanks for watching. Death Ridge, educational content is great to do. Bucks dominated last night. Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah. But yeah, let me know in the chat. Reach out to me in the comments section, and we'll see. Maybe I'll go ahead and hype up a membership for this so that we can do all sorts of just weird and silly things for members only. This way, we can start to sort of separate, make that professional separation between the actual live streams to where I can brief, focus on the serious stuff with some jokes and ad-libbing, and then we can keep it to members only. Folks who are very faithful to the channel can tune in to the fun live streams where we're very casual, very uncensored. We roast and talk smack about each other. Y'all can roast me if you want. I don't care. I think it'd be hilarious. I'd love to see what you guys could say about me. I'd love to hear it, whether it's actual constructive criticism or if y'all want to talk about my hairline. I know somebody mentioned that during the hurricane season. Somebody said, why are you and your hairline talking about this, and that? I don't know if they're still in the chat, but I know some folks used to say Giga Chad of the weather community. I took it as a compliment, but I'm sure they probably meant it in more of a derogatory manner, but remains to be seen. I would definitely love to host roasts of the Weather Center. I think that'd be fun as, a heck too. I would not worry about that at all, nor would I take it offensively whatsoever, because I know you guys are all good for it, and you've been hanging around since Adalia. A lot of you have. Outside of some of the folks who are finally bleeding over from TikTok, which is amazing. Glad to see it. Miss Leah, welcome in. You're joining at the last second. We started at 7 o'clock, and we're getting ready to end the stream, unfortunately. But everyone who wants to explore the idea of doing a very cheap members-only live chat, live discussion, live briefing, etc., like some of these other bigger channels, drop a 1 in the chat. If you don't think so and you don't think it's a good idea, drop a 2, just so we can start doing a little bit of a democracy, sort of level the playing field a little bit for everybody. I would love to hear your thoughts. Oh, wow, that is a glorious picture. Can't type. There we go. Mick and Marley, you don't think that's a good idea, and I'm assuming because of what you have going on with Marley, more than likely, huh? Scrooge 1.5. All right, I'll continue to toy around with that idea. I'll definitely continue to toy around with that idea. And I'm not going to be making it no Planet Fitness or Crunch Fitness, freaking Anytime Fitness membership. I'm not going to be doing no $20 a month, and you could do the Weather Center, whatever. No, I'm not going to do that. It'd probably be like $1 or $2 a month just for the actual members-only live streams. Nothing outrageous. It would be very, very horrible on my part to monetize to that level. That's for sure. I would definitely not... I think even $5 and up a month, unless you are like a prestigious, accoladed, AMS certified broadcast meteorologist, I don't think anybody in their right mind should be charging anything more than a couple bucks for a members only thing on their YouTube channel. And shame on you, whoever's out there who is watching this, who has a members only of like $9, $10, $15, and you're just a self-proclaimed enthusiast. And I mean that. That is shame on you. That's highway robbery, not even joking. Hate to sound like a 50-year-old, whatever, but still, that is wrong. Definitely wrong. Shoot, even if I were a degreed meteorologist, which is coming hopefully within the next year or two, I'm not going to be out here, Mr. Pay me my $10 or I refuse to look in your direction. No, what? No, punch in the face. But all right, folks, we're done ab-libbing. We'll go ahead and start calling the stream. And yeah, that's about it. We will definitely talk to you again very soon, more than likely taking a break from the YouTube sphere. But as always, for those of you who have the capability of doing so, reach out, follow me up on Instagram, TikTok, and the X. We'll still be doing our daily updates and our continuous story posts and little brief updates there on the other social medias. I need to start not only getting my life together and getting my green screen up. I know you guys haven't forgotten about that. Neither have I. It's collecting dust right behind me. Still need to get that up. And I really do. I need to get back into the habit of making some full-fledged videos that will sit on the channel as opposed to just doing the live streams. Because I definitely think I'm honestly shooting myself in the foot. I know everyone's hyping out there, but at the same time, I'm probably losing the opportunity to gain some pretty decent subscribers from other regions of the United States and other areas by not making videos. So I need to get on the ball, come up with a better content schedule, especially now that my spring semester of school has kicked off. Can you believe today is only day 1 of the spring semester? I already have a test in 4 days. What are you going to test us on? We just started. We have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then Monday exam. What exam? So goes to show I'm going to have my hands full. That's actually a great idea. How close are we? I thought about that. Doing a live stream of setting up the new Weather Center backdrop. And you know what? Maybe I will. I'll do that as a casual live stream this Thursday or maybe even Friday. We'll see. Will, stop pointing your finger at the camera, giving me nightmares again. Yeah, I'm sorry, Will. I definitely understand. I'm having PTSD or flashbacks to the military, basic training and boot camp. But all right, guys, we'll continue to play around with the idea of a members-only live stream, live discussions, and etc. Of course, we'll still provide you with some serious and actual legit weather content amongst those members-only subscriptions. But, to be determined, just like I think Thursday or Friday, we'll maybe schedule a live stream together at a very odd time. Maybe Friday, a little bit later, just so that way we're not in the midst of bad weather. People are looking for that kind of content coverage. This way we can very casually just, have a conversation, shoot the breeze, and kind of work together and do the stuff. But do an overly thumbnail photo. Wait, what do you mean, Ethan? What do you mean by that? Yeah, exam is crazy. I wrote it down on my calendar right here. 16th January, spring semester begins, and then on the 21st, Sunday, which would be due for Monday by midnight, test 1 due. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. Yep, college. Back to being a college student. So, do an overly thumbnail photo of it, though. You mean an overlay thumbnail photo of it? Is that what you mean? Like an overlay thumbnail? But yeah, we have another ad getting ready to run. Let me skip it. See, I'm eating the revenue for you guys, just skipping the advertisements. We are putting up this insane green screen right now. Big changes to the channel. That is true. Yeah, we could hype the green screen. Extreme green screen background overlay to change the entire historical, historical change to the Weather Center channel. Tune in for these extreme modifications being done. Say Masta Pasta, have a wonderful evening, and the rest of you, that goes as well for you guys. We're going to go ahead and kill the live stream before I get distracted a little bit more. Thank you all for tuning in, guys. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, reach out to me in the comments section below or on my X, Instagram, and or my TikTok, whichever you prefer. And yeah, we'll see you again very soon. More than likely not tomorrow, unless you follow me on other social media platforms. You'll see some updates coming from me on the Talkin' on Instagram. More than likely, I need to get more in the habit of posting on my X to try to get the following up on there as well. But yeah, I hope to talk to you guys again very soon. We'll continue to play around with the idea of doing a members-only live stream, and I'm going to definitely do some research for the southeast quadrant of Florida, that's for sure, to see exactly why it is that there is such a hot zone for some tornadic activity with regardless of a garden variety thunderstorm or actual shortwave synoptic scale-induced feature. And the glasses, my eyes were hurting big time the other day. These are my blue light glasses, and I don't turn the blue lights off on my weather center. I have the blue lights off on my actual work computer, so that's why I don't wear them for work. But on here with the blue lights in the screens, they can be very harmful, and when my eyes are already hurting, I don't need them to hurt any further, so that's why I'll wear them sometimes. But all right, folks, have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday night, and I hope the rest of the week treats you well if I don't see you in the upcoming live streams. But until next time, we'll talk to you very soon. This is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.